So for starters, I thought I would play you my own reel, at least where it's currently at. I've shot some stuff over the years, mostly movies, shorts, music videos, kinds of stuff. Then lately, I've been getting into animation, so I'm trying to get more content to sneak that into my reel to kind of just show the full picture of me. So this is still a work in progress, but as it is now, it's out there, and well, let's just watch it, and we can tear it apart afterwards.
Don't judge me. Judge you.
Following me in the woods?
Here's me. Okay, so it's a bunch of stuff I've done over the years, and it's about, how long was that? It's it's always the first thing I'm going to look at when if I see a reel or somebody sends me a reel. So it's 1:35. I always like to ask the question, how long does it feel though? Do you feel like it's just 90 seconds, or were you like, whoa, it was 90 seconds? What do you guys think?
3 minutes.
Felt like 3 minutes? It felt longer, yeah. And that's something you'll just start to learn in thinking in terms of the pacing of a reel in its relation to how it can warp time in your audience's experience with it. And especially with the idea that you're the one putting it together, and you have an idea for how long it should be, how long it should feel, and then you play it for somebody else, and they're kind of you watch them kind of check out after 30 seconds, and you're like, what happened? That 30 seconds to them was a lot longer than it was for you, So just trying to address some of those things. But I agree with you. I watched that, and it's 90 seconds. To me, that doesn't sound like a long reel, but watching it, I feel like I've gone through a lot. And so I guess in this audience perspective, time has been warped to take longer. And I think in general, you can assume that's going to happen with your reels. So if your reel is getting on longer and longer, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, just think about the audience. To them, that's going to feel like 10 minutes and 12 minutes. And because they'll just lose track of time, and they're going to be caught up trying to follow the images and the story you're telling. So those are kind of just the first things to consider. Is just be aware that time warps in reels. And I think one of the hallmarks of a great reel is that it starts very powerfully, and it grabs your attention, and it makes you want to stick around and watch the rest. And that really is everything to do with choosing the best, most image capturing sound and music to make somebody want to stay on and keep watching. I'm curious to do a quick poll over what kind of students we have here. What is your reel going to be for? Is it journalism? Is it man on the street stuff? Do you do stories? What's some of the things that you have to put in a reel? Are you all news anchors or weather people, or yeah? So there's all different kinds of content that would make up a reel. I just personally come from that background of a more filmmaking side. I've been sneaking in as much animation as I can. Ideally, I get a version of my reel that's a mix of live action and animation, pretty 50-50, because that's what I want to be known as. And again, that's just kind of in that the motivation of what should your reel be. It should be telling your story. And I think it's a great place to start is, well, what do I want them to know about me and what can I do in showing that? I will confess, in that reel, I did not cut the original version of it. I had my wife do it because she's actually an editor and she knows stuff. I like what she did. She picks a song very specifically. She likes an energy and a movement. Like she's thinking about how one shot leads to the next shot, and like if like somebody does this, then the next shot somebody's doing this. Like just finding those like visual cues and transitions. And I love what she's done. And then since she made it, I've gone in and messed it up by adding all my stupid animation stuff. And she's like, "Oh, you took away all the stuff I worked really hard on." And I'm like, "I know, but I need to start selling the animation side of my career." So I'm sure we'll revisit it once I get some more content. But any other comments or questions on that reel? I will say that for me, I would never go longer than 90 seconds in a kind of storyteller / director producer kind of reel. I think that's a good place to start and stop, because you should be able to get in there, tell your story, have some cool experiences and visuals, and then get out of there. And that is different depending on what kind of a reel you might find yourself doing and what you're interested in and what kind of content you end up producing. I'll check with you guys 5 years from now and let me know kind of how your entire reels have changed, because that will happen. So here is another reel, and this one is an animator's reel, and these usually just blow my mind, and this is like inspired me to want to have such a reel one day, but like I'm just not quite the artist yet. But this thing's really fun. Let's check it out. Okay. That one was also 1 minute and 30 seconds. Does anybody still feel like it still felt longer than that? Like maybe shorter, longer? This one, I mean, I can't even count how many different pieces are a part of this. But for me, the magical part of this is how much it feels like it's still all one piece. It almost feels like this is all just animated as the reel, but you know he's taken this from like probably 15 or 20 different videos he's worked on, because every shot is serving the next one visually or rhythmically with that song. And like this part in the middle where the song kind of stops and like we take a breather visually, and right before then, yeah. Where is it? There you go. And and then picks up the action with the energy and the drums again. So that's just a very close attention to detail for song choice. Like that is so important. Like number one, if you're gonna have a song be kind of your driving force of your reel, and it also tells such a story. Like I think the song you use in your reel communicates your personality and your tone as a creator of content. And so generally you lean towards more upbeat stuff, but we'll show a director's reel here later who is just kind of does more somber, dramatic stuff, and that's got a different tone. And you want somebody coming away from your reel understanding what they'd be getting if they hired you. You know, like they might have a certain project that's on that certain kind of a tone, and like, hey, let's check out reels from people. You might not use a super upbeat, sporty, animated guy to do a little dramatic piece about some, you know, like children's medicine, you know, or like, you know, there's different ways that companies will find their directors, and in looking at reels, they're always just looking for who matches that tone of what we're going for. And you can't really cater to everybody, right? You can't, you can try. I think that's one thing we can hit on later is just kind of the idea that if you're going to start sending your reel around out there and your website and everything, the idea that if it's a certain company you want to work for, then change some edits, make your reel serve that company a little better. Maybe there's like some references in there, like a music choice that relates to that company. I'm not above like having 5 different versions of a reel based on what kind of a market I'm sending it out into. So yeah, that's always just kind of like understanding that a reel is kind of a fluid document and that you can tweak it here. You can swap the song out, put it in a different one, and suddenly it's going to serve a completely different purpose. You might need to tweak your edits because the rhythm might be different. But I think, and if you ever want to just be inspired by like how creative and amazing people are, just look at animators' reels, because like they're always just constantly. I think an animator is so obsessed with what's in the frame at every single aspect of it that they know how to get from one thing to another in very cool ways visually, and I think they kind of have a leg up on live action people. Yeah, so a lot of these just transition pretty blank. Like, I mean, that's just a straight cut from that green thing to this thing. But again, just with that song, and it's got its own energy, and that kind of breakdown in the middle, and it coming back up. And again, just 90 seconds. It doesn't sound like long, but it's full of stuff. That's an animator's reel. And you'll notice, like, none of this is scenes playing out, right? You would put your reel cuts of your favorite, most like eye-catching, stop, we got to keep watching this stuff. And then if they wanted to watch like this commercial here with this guy pounding things and drinking whatever Kool-Aid that is, then on your website is where you would have the complete piece of that. So if like, hey, I want to watch the whole version of that, then that's where it's separately on a website to kind of like, hey, well, here's my reel, watch full versions of things down here. So you'll notice that mostly across the board that reels are just the best of the best, hopefully to keep somebody engaged so that they do watch past 15 seconds. And then if they really love what they're seeing, they'll go watch the full versions of your stuff after that. So that's an animator's reel. We'll watch this director's one, and I just grabbed this one. I don't know who this is, but I thought it was okay. Christian Schultz.
Originally, there was never really like a step-by-step plan. It's just like make some music and then hopefully luck will intervene down the road. And the kind of sucky thing is not everyone will get heard or seen or whatever it is, even if they are super good.
People want answers and they want to know where to go with their own lives. want some kind of roadmap. They want some kind of clear, definitive, safe trajectory that they can begin to feel comfortable with as they step forward, limiting risk, limiting, any responsibility for their own decision making. They want to follow someone else. They want to have the winning formula. They want to know that this is good, that's bad, commercials suck, art is great, so that they can carve out a reality for themselves where they are, in charge. And if we really want to be honest, we're all in a bit of a free fall. Control is really an illusion.
Maybe I start to believe I'm the source of inspiration.
I think artists get caught up in that same thing where they know what's working and they don't even realize they're being formulaic that way. They're doing it for the wrong reasons because that's how they feel good about themselves.
Okay, anybody want to guess how long that one was? 2:11. Good call. A definite shift in tone and story, right? Like we get a whole new sense of that filmmaker based on his images, his choice of music, the little voiceover parts, he knows what kind of stories he wants to tell in almost this introspective, moody, look at all this like grays, dark cinematography and like the real kind of natural, raw, struggling artist kind of stuff he's got in here. So that would be great for those kinds of projects. Again, I might not go to him for some like Starburst commercial or something, right? Because he's not interested in that as well. He looks like he's very into personal stories and getting, capturing people at their moments where there might be insecure or have vulnerability. And again, that's all telling his story in 2 minutes of the kinds of storyteller that he is. And that's the kind of, he'll send this reel around for jobs or movies or shorts or music videos, anything out there that might be looking for something more of this tone. And I think it's really well done. I think the cinematography is beautiful. Like I love the shots and the editing is very, it captures that director. And I know exactly what kind of thing I'd be getting into if I hired him to do something for me. Because I'd be like, hey, I saw your reel. I want you to do a piece on my brother who's a struggling musician in Ohio, right? I'm sure he would be perfect at that. Because it already looks like he does pieces on struggling musicians in the Midwest. So yeah, just again, but it's cool to be able to identify what kind of storyteller he is already just from his reel, and I think that's full success for him. So kudos. And then one more here, and we'll get into kind of more journalism and a bigger discussion there for kind of some of that stuff. This is more of a business's reel / cinematography. So it's a company you would hire to go shoot your event or capture your short stories. And they've done some pretty cool things too. I worked with him a couple of times and I was just curious. I hadn't seen him in like 5 years and I looked up what he's been up to. Let's just check him out. that was 2.5 minutes. In a wash in this music choice, which I think really stands out to it, and giving you this, like, just like it starts off with kind of like an interesting like overview of humanity and art and science and nature, and then these like dong bells start ringing, kind of like dissonant and off key, and you're just like wondering what are they really up to here, and that song changes the story of what kind of experience you would expect from these guys. And it's an interesting choice. I think it almost makes you feel uneasy in the stories they're capturing. Like, it looks like they have a lot of kind of health related stuff, you know. There's older people, some art installations here, science, but the idea that they chose this song kind of gives me this like inner peek into like the creators are capturing humanity on some level, but also like they have their own twist on like what is behind all of that, and like something's wrong here, and there's some disconnect between happy faces and sickness, right? And like I don't know, like this simple 2-minute reel has given me this like story into their psychology that like I wouldn't have even thought about, other than knowing that like they chose to put that song in there and put those pieces to that music. So it just kind of gives you a sense of like what kind of stories might you hire them for, and what's kind of the curious niche point of view that you want to bring them on board something for. So yeah, they might have different reels for different things, but in this one in particular just caught my eye, and I kind of summed it up with this is their view of humanity, and kind of their take into what's not so perfect about everything all the time. I think the song is such a big part of that. With any of these, I think the song choice is more important than the visuals even. Like, I think there's so much that you tell somebody by the kind of music you play for them. And it's got to be such a conscious choice. You know, try hundreds of songs in your thing and just watch how it changes the feel. And make sure you choose the one that is you. You know, like try to find like that captures me, and that's what I want to put out into the world. But interesting, just like the last couple of weeks I've been putting this together, I've looked at hundreds of reels, and I just, you know, it's always the song choice that makes me stop and go like, oh, that's the one they went with, or that's a great choice. You know, it always kind of stops you one way or another. So any questions or comments at this point? I think it's just kind of fun to get a look at different types of reels and what they're accomplishing. In general, every single reel we've watched so far has been 90 seconds to 2 minutes, except the actors was 3 minutes long. So that's, I would say, is your target range, unless, and this is just how the industry is, you're some kind of news reporter, anchor, storyteller who's wanting to put a reel together that showcases those efforts. Just different kinds of rules for them, for news stations, newspapers, all of that nature. I think the journalism world is okay with longer reels because they do want to see you tell a whole story. They do want to see you deliver an entire segment as an anchor and stuff like that. But there's just a kind of a certain way to accomplish that. And let's go ahead and check this guy's out. Some of you may know him. I don't know when he graduated. I know he's recent. Brad. Okay. So here's his reel. We'll see how long we last.
It's been just about a day, and already this road has risen about 15 feet into the air. So I want to invite you guys to take a walk with me this way. Take a look at the steps up here. Snap's headquarters are actually all around me, but you'd never be able to guess because none of these buildings are marked with a company name or even a logo. They came crashing down and landed right on top of this car. The number of people who died while crossing the street rose by 10% last year. The storm is causing massive branches just like this one to be ripped off of trees. If you look just 6 feet away, a distance I can literally touch with my 2 hands, an alarming number of reports coming all within the university area. Still waiting on major battleground state, Pennsylvania. Thousands of people are marching through the streets of Los Angeles right now, protesting the election. Most LA drivers don't want to ditch their car.
Anywhere from 50 to 100 people now in front of that building.
Already the snow is coming down pretty hard. There's a little bit that's formed on the ground.
Do you feel like the way that Uber's hiring practices are right now, that all of the passengers are safe?
For him, it's just as important that customers are leaving with the perfect haircut as it is that they have a little bit of entertainment while they're here. These are dramatic images of the Oroville Dam's compromised spillway that forced almost 200,000 people to leave their homes. Now, many are questioning the safety of dams in Los Angeles.
It's important that we ensure our flood control system is operating safely and efficiently.
To do that, the LA County Board of Supervisors is giving the Department of Public Works 1 month to report on the safety of local dams. Dams like Devil's Gate in Pasadena.
It is the most vulnerable dam at this time in the system because of its lack of storage.
Lack of storage because it's full of dirt from the 2009 wildfires, so there's not much room for water.
I've seen the water fluctuate quite a bit over the last few weeks as we've gotten rain.
We can't handle the rainfall that has happened thus far, and we're expecting more rain. That's very concerning.
Age is another reason for concern. Devil's Gate Dam right behind me, for example, was built just about 100 years ago.
With that age come issues, maintenance issues.
Issues Bob Spencer from Public Works says they watch closely.
From a maintenance perspective, the dam is inspected every day.
And over the next 30 days, inspect it even closer. In Los Angeles, Brad Stryker, Annenberg Media. Traffic is a sight and sound that LA drivers are all too familiar with.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
It's all day, I remember, yeah? Except like late nights, yeah?
Drivers in LA are actually the most familiar with it. A new study by Inrix says that LA has the worst traffic congestion of all other cities in the world.
We do have a situation where we have too many cars entering our freeway systems at one time.
That freeway system is exactly what Caltrans oversees. A spokesman says they're doing all they can to alleviate LA's traffic problem.
In areas where we can widen freeways, we are. In areas that we can install technology to move people faster, we are.
The easiest solution to LA's traffic problem is just to get more people using public transportation. But as it turns out, most LA drivers don't want to ditch their car.
Ridership is down system-wide about 6%. On the bus side, we're down about 8.9%.
Even though Metro's ridership is down, it's still working to combat traffic in LA. After recently extending 2 rail lines, Metro has plans for 3 more projects.
The trouble with that plan is that the more rail you build, the less transit you have.
James Moore is the director of USC's Transportation Engineering Program. He says the city should consider implementing congestion tolls to reduce traffic. The idea is that drivers would be charged when driving at peak hours.
If I get on the freeway at rush hour, I slow other people up, I follow the air, those costs are real.
But a less costly option is public transportation.
But we'll probably never get everybody out of their automobile. That will not happen. But at least we can offer some alternatives.
It's a quiet Saturday morning on Van Buren Place in South Los Angeles. But these aren't the sights and sounds residents in this area are used to. These are. We're looking at an aerial view of the Jefferson drill site. It's an active oil drilling site in the middle of one of the most densely populated neighborhoods in Los Angeles. It's been there since the 1960s. It used to be owned by an oil drilling company called Freeport-McMoRan. That was until January, when Sentinel Peak, another oil drilling company, took over.
I walk by and I can just smell the fumes.
Amanda Yang and her husband Hamilton live across the street from the drill site.
I've been woken up by the sound of like metal clanging pipes and like large, loud diesel engine sounds.
Similar complaints from the couple upstairs.
It kind of smells like a gas station, and a mixture of a gas station and rotten eggs in my home.
Loud, kind of thudding, clanging sounds.
But loud noises and bad smells aren't their biggest concern.
Suddenly I'm having trouble breathing, I'm asthmatic, so I can feel my chest kind of tighten up. I get headaches from just the intensity of the fumes.
Those fumes are most likely hydrogen sulfide. It's a chemical naturally found in oil, but it's just as common as it is dangerous.
It can be linked to dizziness, to headaches, as well as exacerbate asthma symptoms.
And it smells like rotten eggs. So the drilling company tried to mask the smell by using more chemicals. Jill Johnston is a professor at the USC Keck School of Medicine who studies the health impacts of oil drilling. She says the chemicals only make it worse.
This type of chemical appears to have strong associations with skin reactions or causing eye irritation, nose irritation.
We reached out to the drilling company that last owned the site. We also tried to speak with the current owner. That company referred us to the California Independent Petroleum Association, which represents both companies.
There are a number of safeguards in place to ensure that operations maintain their safety and efficiency.
To keep people safe, the city of LA set aside 4 lots next to the drilling site in the 1960s. They called it a buffer.
The intention of buffer zones are to provide a level of safety.
On the other side of this wall is the drill site. What I'm standing in now is the buffer zone. And if you look just 6 feet away, a distance I can literally touch with my 2 hands, these are homes with people living inside.
You shouldn't have, active oil wells next to people's bedroom windows. It's not a place to be pulling oil out of the ground. It's just not healthy.
In the 1990s, the city seemed to agree. We found city documents that specifically say the buffer zone will be used to assure that the oil drilling operations would be suitably buffered from the residential uses in close proximity to the oil drilling. In that same document, the city noted that the added buffer would further insulate the residential community from possible adverse impacts associated with oil drilling. Obviously, that's not what it's doing.
People have become human shields, and predominantly they are USC students.
And the city knows that. Documents also show the city deliberately acknowledged the intent of using the buffer properties for student housing associated with the nearby USC campus. We knocked on the doors of the homes in the buffer zone to see for ourselves. No one would talk to us on camera, but we did talk to one resident who told us all her roommates go to USC. She just graduated last year. Neighbors say the USC students could be one reason why the city hasn't done anything about the site. Many don't complain, and then they move away. Residents think the demographics of the area could be another explanation for the city's lack of action.
The city overlooks neighborhoods that are low income, ethnic minorities, which is the majority of my neighbors are.
But LA's Department of Planning says that's not true. In response to our request for an on-camera interview, the department gave us a statement saying complaints received about a specific drill site are addressed with the utmost attention, regardless of location.
We have appealed to city council and complained.
And they've also complained to the South Coast Air Quality Management District. That's the government agency responsible for monitoring air quality in LA. Between 2010 and 2014, neighbors to the drill site called the AQMD 15 times to complain, but the agency only cited the drilling company with emissions violations twice. A public records request shows 15 more complaints filed last year.
I don't think there has been due diligence done on this site and the way that it's operated and what it's been doing.
And City Councilman Marquise Harris Dawson seems to agree. In a statement, he said the city needs to re-examine the city requirements at the site and respond to the issues put forward by residents. A city administrator says they're trying.
We're looking at things to make sure that we're administering this in a modern 21st century approach.
But neighbors say they want changes now.
I think this is a matter of life and death.
It's just not being taken seriously. We just said, because it's our life. It's our lives.
Concerned residents have filed a petition with the city's planning department. The city held a public hearing in January, and a decision on whether the drilling operations are in violation of zoning rules is expected to come within a few months.
Definitely a different experience, right? Letting 9 minutes and 40 seconds play out. I think this one is very successful in its introduction and getting to the point of who Brad Stryker is, the kinds of stories he's into. I think it's about 1 minute worth of these highlights at the front that were my favorite part too, and they kind of give you a great introduction to his sense of humor, kind of the action that he gets himself into. You know that he's a man on the street. He's out to get the story, and I'm here to deliver it to you guys. So he's willing to go towards dangerous places. I saw, there's a little bit of action and some urgency sometimes in his stories. He's always got this great sense of humor. I like that he put in this little piece here with the clown barber and getting to honk the horn. And that's a conscious choice, right? It's like, I want people to know that I have a great sense of humor too, and like I can laugh at what I'm doing, and I'm out gathering stories, and I'm a fun guy to be around. I think he's also, just as a professional, that he's got that journalist storyteller voice in mind, like how to tell a story. How do you talk like that Midwestern dialect where it's like da 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 da, that rhythm, like he's got that practiced. And so like it's just a showcase of him, right? And that's the main difference you'll see in journalism pieces for any kind of news media and television is your reel will be, give me your best stuff as a series of shots early. Great one-liners, little sound bites, funny moments, dangerous moments. Put all of that at the front. Don't save any best for later. All best early, always. Again, because especially knowing that like a news channel is going to get hundreds of these reels, and they know most of them are going to be 8 or 9, 10 minutes. Yes, in general, yes. And that is because if they do like that first intro, they will then check out your stories. And that's so they don't have to go somewhere else to then check your stories. So it's like you give them everything at once in the reel. It's okay that it's that long. They'll stop it earlier if they want to. But if they do like you, they will stick around and watch those because they want to see you execute at a full package, right? So he gave us, I think there were 3 packages in there that told a different story, and that last one especially was like this investigative journalist piece on that drilling in that Jefferson neighborhood. And just got to show like how in depth he went. He had all those like documents with like the zoom in on like key words and all that. And that's the kind of stuff they're looking for. Is like we want to know somebody who can do a package like this on their own. And I don't know if you caught on one of these shots, he's interviewing somebody, and you see the reverse shot where it's just him. Like he's by himself. He sets up there he is. So he sets up his tripod and does these interviews just him. Like he's a one-man show, and he put that shot in there on purpose. I guarantee you, because like he wants to be known as like, hey, guess what? This story you're watching, all me, complete start to finish, camera, sound, all the B-roll shots, the little cutaways, the like focus pulls where it kind of changes from like papers to the guy at the desk. I think that's what he's proud of, and he wants to showcase that. I think it is too. Yeah, he might want to sneak it in there. The only problem with that is that he's not talking or necessarily in this scene. He's not doing something other than just standing there. And I would always defer to action over standing somewhere. So, you notice all these early shots. He's walking, he's going towards something, he's dealing with things. Where that one, he's just kind of stationary and waiting for the questions. So I'll always just kind of think about that too. Well, it's like activity and motion. Even just visually, like thinking of your audiences, like they want to like look at something moving, they want to follow along. If it's just a bunch of stationary shots of him standing there talking, like that tells you what kind of reporter he is, But he's always walking around. He's like investigating this like car crash, or like the earth went up, or he's driving, like
On the streets of Los Angeles right now.
Like get me in action, and those are the front-loaded shots. And later there are shots of him just standing and people just standing and talking, and that's fine because those are parts of a piece. But you have to treat a reel in for a journalist like this. I think it's almost like a 2-parter thing. It's like the first minute or so is your reel. That's like the best of the best, and then it's just here's the pieces of the stories in their full capacity. Because generally you would see, outside of the journalism world, it would be like mine, where it's like it's just a reel, and if you want to watch the full things, I have them on my website somewhere else. For some reason, in kind of TV news journalism, they just want everything at once. They don't want to have to go hunting for the full pieces of this or that. They're happy to have it all in part of that same video. Any other comments or things you're noticing about the differences here? You're getting a good sense of kind of like a basic structure of a reel. Front load it with your best of the best. That's like what I always say. Like, don't think that like, oh, I want to save that for the end, because the vast majority of people aren't going to get to the end of your reel. And that's just honest truth, that like people are getting hundreds of reels and they're going to skip through and be like blah, blah, blah until something grabs them right from the start. So it's a tough call, but I would cut fast. I wouldn't let anything linger too long. his
Headquarters are actually all around me, but you'd never be able to guess because none of these buildings are marked with a company name or even a logo. They came crash.
cut, it's like, let me get my soundbite out, cut to the next one. Let me get my soundbite out, cut to the next one. He doesn't linger any longer. He's getting, as we say, we get in late and leave early, right? Like, just use exactly what you need and get us through your great stuff at that front there. Because quick editing is another way to keep up energy. You notice there's no music for this one as well. I think music is generally frowned upon for journalism pieces and reels. It's all about you and showing that you can tell a great story and you're comfortable on camera, you're able to talk. And this is, in his particular case, he's somebody who's out on the streets getting these stories and packages together. There's also, I couldn't find one that in time, but there's also like the anchor kind of reel, which would be different. You'd want to show your best work as an anchor, showing sequences of you kind of walking through a session, from start to finish. But I would take anchor soundbite highlights first, especially, and it's just funny because I read this on the page, is like one television was always looking for witty banter. Like, we love it when an anchor is able to kind of just chat and joke around with the other one, and like finding a few of those to throw in there. So again, just so you have a sense of humor. And I think, yeah, but the same kind of structure. If you were an anchor and you had a bunch of anchor footage or weatherwoman footage, I would put funny stuff, I would put sound bites, I would put great stuff right at the front, then fade to black, and then fade up and let a whole sequence play. And then let maybe 2 more full sequences play, and not to be afraid of letting full pieces play out in their entirety, because that's expected. That's what's different from the other reels. So, how are we doing on time? Well, I guess I want to just open up to questions. Any Premiere related questions, things that like you don't know how to do or you're curious about, maybe that you saw here today or conceptually. I have Premiere open. I was looking up a certain type of reel on Google and looking at Vimeo or YouTube. Yeah, so that's where I found all of these. Even my friends are all up there too. Yeah, Premiere can have, yes, thank you. Yeah, you can do voiceover in Premiere, definitely, yeah. I would say the easiest way is to record a voice memo and then just take that file and bring it into Premiere. Yeah, the voice memo app is actually very good. If you get in a quiet space, don't talk directly into the microphone, but just kind of have it be, a few inches below. And it can record a very strong signal that'll be good for you. We have, I teach the ASCJ 200, and that's what we have the students do, and it's always great work, Like, these things are awesome. Just, uh-huh. Yeah, you want to add intros. The camera's microphone's not very good. Yeah. Yes, hopefully that was a little inspiring and getting you on reels going, and get to it. I'd love to see them. If you want, you can send them my way. Yeah, that's me, EDWA717. It's Justin Edwards, but I guess there's 716 other Edwards. So I'm Edwas717.
Thank you.
Yep.